speaking to them about contact, I'm not sure they're ready to see an alien in the window. Do you have other suggestions for the little ones?
Depending upon their age, your children are already exposed to many representations of ETs and other kinds of beings in their programming on television and in movies. You can simply be creative and imaginative and choose representations that you deem to be, shall we say, cuter than average, so that children can relate to them and use those instead.
Okay, and when contact is made, what reactions do you anticipate from us?
Again, there will be a range of responses and reactions depending upon belief systems, willingness to be open or not to the idea that you are not alone, willingness to be open to the idea of the kind of changes that would have to occur within you as individuals and within all of you as a society. So again, there will be a range of reactions and responses, and this is what we anticipate will occur at first.
And what qualities make us the best candidates for open contact?
Love, peace, creativity, imagination, and a willingness to be your true selves, a willingness to raise your vibration, a willingness to expand your consciousness, a willingness to connect to all that is in a variety of ways.
And could you tell me more about the sanctuaries you speak of? You mentioned people will be led to them by synchronicity. Could someone like myself prepare a space or the sanctuaries and set them aside? Can I be put on the list?
Again, people will be creating these sanctuaries through synchronistic opportunities, whether you yourself are involved in the creation of one or simply allowing synchronicity to lead you eventually to those that have been created by humans on your planet. It doesn't really matter. It is up to you to follow your passion as to whether or not you are actually finding a space and creating a sanctuary or being open to being attracted to a sanctuary once they exist.
Um, is there only one non-physical source we call spirit or God? Or is there really many parts that make this an idea of one whole? I'd like to know if there is a God and what I have been chasing my whole life on earth.
You are separating the idea into this or that instead of this and that. There is one and there is all, and the one and the all are the same thing in different forms. There is one that becomes the all, that is the all, is itself as the all, and there are the many things that together make up the one, but are each individually their own version, their own perspective of the one. Everything is made of God. There is nothing else to make anything from, and therefore God is everything. When people on your planet talk about the idea and the notion of God being omnipresent, you have to understand that it's not possible to be everywhere unless you're actually literally everything. Therefore, it is everything. It is every atom, every subatomic particle, every object, every molecule, everything. The space even in between the things that you think of as empty space, that is even made of God. There is nowhere where God, all that is, isn't. It is everything, it is everyone, it is everywhere, it is every when. All the things make it up, and it makes up all the things.
After one becomes enlightened, is there any steps along one's path of spiritual development, or is this awakening the last step?
Enlightenment never ends. There are always different levels to awareness and enlightenment and experiences of all that is. Even if someone imagines that they reach the so-called quote unquote highest level of becoming one with all that is, becoming one with source, there are still many versions of what it means to experience becoming one with source. So even becoming one with source is not the ending of enlightenment or awareness. It is infinite, goes on forever, never ends. There's always something else.
Okay, and can you please give examples of the idea of the illusion of power versus the power of the illusion? I would like to understand this.
Many people on your planet fall under the illusion of power in the sense of thinking that their physical minds need to control things. They think of themselves as powerful when they find themselves able to manipulate certain events into a certain order that allows them to feel satisfied with what it is they insist on seeking. But the idea is to understand that physical reality is a projection of consciousness. In that context, an illusion doesn't mean it's not valid. It doesn't mean the experience is not real. But understanding that you are already creating your reality based on your belief systems, based on what you define as true for you, is being able to utilize the power of the illusion to your benefit by going with the flow, by not being in resistance, by not attempting to force things into shape, but by understanding how to allow them to automatically fall into place using your own natural current, your own natural control built into you, rather than attempting to artificially control things through the physical mind, which it's not designed to do. It is only designed to give you an experience of physical reality, not to control it. The idea is that the control is already built in to the choices that you made to experience, the challenges that you chose to experience in this lifetime to grow as a soul. So allowing the idea of the agreements you made to simply unfold in perfect timing and to respond to them in a positive way, acting on your passion, following the formula, going with the flow, not resisting the natural current that you are, is the way to use the power of the illusion that's already built into it, instead of falling under the illusion that you are powerful by exercising your physical mind to control everything, which is exactly the opposite of being in control.
And if we all have unique experiences of life on Earth, do we all see the same objects and colors in the same non-biased way? Do you, Bashar, see our Earth and objects' colors the same way we do? Or do you see everything as energy or some other state?
You may have a strong sense of agreement so that what you perceive in your reality is very, very similar to what someone else may be perceiving in their reality, and therefore have a common ground in a sense.
Mhm.
But the idea is that you do not perceive exactly, precisely the same thing as everyone else. You all have a unique perspective. We see things also very differently than you do. We see multidimensionally far more than you do at this point in your evolution. And therefore, we see energy patterns. We can recognize those energy patterns as a type of language that allows us to understand how to perceive you and other beings in a very different way, on many different levels, simultaneously, even into the idea of perceiving parallel reality aspects of your being that you are connecting to, other civilizational vibrations that you are connecting to, other dimensional expressions of your greater being and your oversoul. So yes, we see you as much bigger than you see yourselves in a variety of ways, and extending into a variety of dimensional realities.
And when we use our imagination to interact with our hybrid children, what type of connection is actually happening? When this person is saying, when they play out the scenarios in their head, do they know that the hybrid children know they're doing this and come around? Can you explain this process a little more, because it's not tangible in their reality?
The hybrid children are extremely telepathic, will often pick up on when you are thinking of them, will allow their imagination to vibrationally match the imaginary scenarios that you are picturing in your head. For those that are vibrationally compatible with the realities that benefit them, they will experience what you are imagining. For those that are not necessarily relevant to them, they will not necessarily experience those portions of your imagination. They may send back a representation of what it is that would be more likely represented by them, They can reverse the telepathy in that sense and allow you, especially in dream time, to have a more representative imagination scenario that is more in alignment with their vibration. So that can work in both directions.
And you stated in a session that new children on Earth are coming through upgraded in a way that they will be able to remember the connection much faster.
Yes.
Please tell me the age range of these particular upgraded children.
Generally speaking, most of them are in their 20s at this point, although new ones are being born all the time, and therefore there's a large age range below 20 years of age. That doesn't mean that anyone over 20 isn't also hybridized in the new way, part of a new species. But the overall average age is somewhere in the 20s of those that have been hybridized to the point where they are a relatively new species. That doesn't mean that they're all in alignment. It simply means they all have different capacities than you used to have as a species. It still depends on what they choose to do with it. It still depends upon the themes that they chose to explore as to what they are capable of recognizing within themselves, but they do have a slight advantage of being capable of remembering more of who they are as a spirit connected to source. How they interpret it will be based on the themes they chose to explore.
And could you clarify how it is that the Sasani are one of the products of the hybridization agenda, but their physical future selves seem to also be participating in it, such as yourself? I am curious if the version of the hybridization agenda that you perceive as the origin of your society is the same as the one that you're participating in. For example, you perceive your physical self as being physically involved in the creation of your own society. Are there versions of it that were created without the involvement of physical future selves? In a similar fashion, does Willa perceive that Daryl has channeled her in the past of her timeline, which will mean the information of the 5 levels of mastery was being used on Earth before they even invented it?
You are confused by the science fiction convention of future and past and time travel. The idea is to understand us not so much literally as future selves, but as parallel reality interpretations, parallel reality counterparts that all exist simultaneously with your reality. So yes, we are involved, but literally speaking, we are not coming from what you would consider to be your future in a linear sense. We coexist with you right now. So the idea is to drop the notion that we're in your future, because that's not how it works. The idea of the utilization of the term future selves is simply an application to represent that we are very much more advanced than you, which you usually chalk up to the idea of a future evolutionary being. But we exist right now. So the idea is we coexist with you and are participating with you. We are not coming from the literal future in the science fiction sense.
And also, the idea that the third entity is created when Daryl channels you or
Yes,
channels Bashar. And does that being have its own individuated soul?
of a type, yes. We will not go into detail on this at this time because it can get a little complex, but of a type, yes.
Okay, and could you clarify the differences between the grays that you're referring to and the zeta reticuli? I'm
As we have
confused.
mentioned from time to time, there are many factions of grays. And the reason for this primarily is that when we talked about the idea of grays coming from a parallel version of Earth and other parallel realities, you must understand that there are a multitude of grays from different parallel realities that come through to different versions of Earth. So you have a mix of grays, in a sense, that come from different origin points, all interacting to some degree in what you consider to be your reality. So the grays that are connected to zeta reticuli are not exactly the same grays that are involved primarily in our creation, in the idea of the hybridization agenda. So it gets a little bit confusing because some can cross over from one agenda to another from time to time. But there are many factions of grays that come from many different parallel realities, all coexisting simultaneously in what you consider to be your timeline.
Okay, and is it accurate to say that extrasolar intelligent beings cannot develop the technology to reach Earth unless they have transcended aggressive world domination agendas and other fear based and greed based motivations? Does this imply that regardless of the circumstances on Earth, when they arrive, these beings will be altruistic ETs?
For the most part, yes. And again, remember that those that are engaged with you will set up a vibration that would make it less likely that anything that is vibrationally incompatible with your best interests would simply not find you. You would be invisible to them because of the vibrational state of those engaged with you that are operating on a much higher frequency.
Okay, and could you please explain the game hexes written about in the book Shards of the Shattered Mirror by
Yeah,
Daryl?
there is a playing field made of different hexes. You might call them electronically activated. And the idea is that the players standing on hexes have to, in some way, psychically or telepathically or synchronistically determine the pattern of the changes in the colors of the hexes that change from phase to phase, from moment to moment, so that when you move from one hex to another, you instinctively land on a color that moves you forward and benefits you, as opposed to eliminating you from the game. So, for example, if you move from one hex to another while all the hexes are shifting and changing in color, when the hexes stop changing, stop shifting, and solidify into a particular color that was different than what they were before, or similar to what they were before, whatever color it is that you have now stood on, whatever color happens to be in the hex you have decided to go to, determines your status in the game. So if you perhaps, for example, move to a hex that winds up solidifying into a gold hex, you may have won the game. If you stand on a hex that happens to solidify into a black hex, you may be eliminated from the game. Other colors may represent different status points in the game.
Very interesting.
Yes,
Um, are those who are attracted to your teachings a participant in the hybridization agenda?
they don't all have to be, but about 90% or above usually are.
Okay. And it seems as more of our consciousness expands, more is revealed. Does this mean that as a collective consciousness, if we match your frequency, we will be able to see you in physical form, or will we continue seeing only via our third eye?
You will ultimately see us in physical form if your vibrational rate comes closer to matching our frequency. In some sense, that is really what contact is all about. Because as we have said, those operating on a higher frequency have the qualities of spirit. And when exposed to those frequencies, your physical body may react to them as if you are dying. And that is where the fear comes from. But the idea is that as you raise your frequency and create less differentiation between physical and non-physical reality, you become more vibrationally compatible with our natural state and can allow your senses to begin to perceive us more solidly, more corporeally, more physically.
And this person asks, saying that they 2 days ago meditated and asked to travel with a UFO, and then read in the media the day after that a UFO was observed in the same area of Norway.
Yes,
Is there any link?
yes. That was the UFO that that person visited. Whether they remember fully or not is not the point. but they were given an opportunity to understand through the media story that what they had asked for had actually occurred. In time, they may remember. The memories may unfold. We will not go into details at this time.
Okay. And what this person is saying, when they were younger, they had vivid dreams of their family house on fire and witnessing a UFO. These dreams are still very vivid, and in their research, they sense that they might be significant encounters. They're saying that they know they've been in contact with ETs, and they feel close to remembering, perhaps even Bashar himself, which is one reason they feel such a strong pull to join this transmission. Any insights you might provide that would be helpful in this situation?
This is indicative of communication with hybrid beings in the dream state, in the altered reality state. The house on fire represents the idea of what you're going through now in terms of breaking things down, burning things up, going from an old cycle to a new cycle, allowing the old systems to fall away, to burn away, and new systems to be put in place for your world and your reality to be refreshed and renewed. So the idea is that you are going through this transition. Sometimes it will be represented in a negative way, such as the burning of a house, but nevertheless, it is representative of a clearing, of a letting go of an old way, burning the old ideas out and allowing new ones to come in. So the idea is of a clearing and a preparation and a laying a foundation for a new structure, a new reality to take place in which contact can occur more easily. That is the communication that was given symbolically.
Nice. This person is saying in LA, her son and she spotted two silent triangular shapes with distinct circles in each corner, flying in the night sky from their hot tub. A friend's photo of a similar craft later led me to Bashar, raising questions about the origins of what they saw.
Yes, well, hybrid ships. Again, there's a lot of traffic around your planet. When you expand your consciousness, especially in a relaxed state, such as you achieved in your hot tub, a meditative state, your senses can then become more keenly aware of things that are going on around you that might have been invisible to you before until you allowed your vibration to raise by being in a more meditative state, which then gave you the ability to see some of the traffic that is moving around your planet all the time, especially the hybrid ships, since they are very close to the vibration of open contact, since it is the hybrid children that will be coming to live among you.
Okay, and here's another one. This person says, I had a fascinating flying vehicle encounter in October of 2023 in New York City. It happened around 7 a.m. in Manhattan near the 14th Street Union Square area. I was out grabbing a coffee before work when, upon crossing a street, I noticed out of the sheer corner of my eye an object flying rather unusually low in the open between the buildings. It appeared large, silent, at a distance. I noticed that it happened to be heading in the direction of my workplace right before it disappeared from view behind the buildings. A block away from my workplace, I decided to stop and see if I could get a good look at what it was. Well, lo and behold, I did, only this time it then hovered and stopped in the open space as if noticing me noticing it and stopping by to say hello. If what I perceived was in fact extraterrestrial, may you share with me who that pilot was that was piloting that ship and where they from and anything more you can tell me about that.
It is a Yael craft. They did notice that you were noticing them. Having the coffee is symbolic of waking up, and they were basically recognizing that you were waking up enough to be able to perceive their ship. which was out of phase with your reality, and yet you saw it anyway. And so they noticed that. Their message, in a sense, was good morning. You are waking up.
This person is saying, I'm a science fiction fantasy author, and I'm always wondered if the worlds and characters that run around in my head are as real as I am, or are they only real as this reality? I have a hard time defining the world as an illusion because to me, illusions are fake and fake is meaningless or a lie. Would it be safe to view the world as more malleable and less fixed than we humans currently view our experience of it?
Yes. And again, you can have a different definition of the word illusion. It is not meant in the term to be fake. The idea is perhaps more auspiciously used as a projection of consciousness rather than illusion, if illusion doesn't work for you as a term. So a projection of consciousness can still create a virtual reality for you, and the meaning in it is what you put into it. The experience of it is real, and it gives you lessons, it gives you knowledge, it allows you to expand, it allows you to learn, it allows you to grow. So in that sense, the so-called quote unquote illusion is useful as a tool, if you think of it that way, but perhaps it would be easier for you to use it in the term projection rather than illusion. The idea is that the imaginings are real in their own right to some degree in a variety of ways. It doesn't mean they have to be as concrete as you find your reality to be, but many of them may be, or they may be very close representations of a quote unquote real solid physical reality. They may be slightly different than you imagine them to be, but they could be close. Nevertheless, everything is real in some context, even if it's only real as a story. It's still real in some way, shape, or form, even if it's not literally played out physically in some parallel version of reality.
So maybe one of the ways to relate to this is the idea that since it's a projection of consciousness, it's more malleable
Yes,
and it has more plasticity than we were originally taught.
yes,
And similarly, whatever you experience is relevant to what you need to experience. So it, in a way, it doesn't matter if it's quote unquote real or not. Like, for example, they found that if a person observes another person being hurt in a way that is designed to make the person think it's happening to them, their subconscious cannot distinguish between what is really happening to them and what they are just simply observing.
yes, but you are choosing a very complex psychological example that is beyond what this person was intending. The idea is to look at it more from the science fiction point of view. For example, in your Star Trek, you have the character known as Mr. Spock. As we have discovered, we have never found yet the idea that beings that look exactly like them, what you call the Vulcans, physically exist, but the representation of Mr. Spock is that he is a hybrid. Hybrids exist. The idea of what you call the non-interference directive, the prime directive in Star Trek, where certain civilizations that have not evolved to a certain point are allowed to evolve to that point before they are contacted, that is an actual thing that exists in many civilizations, including ours. So the idea is that there can be a mix of things that do have concrete reality to them, physically speaking. There can be some things that are real in the sense that they are symbolic representations of other concrete realities, though the representation itself may not be literal. And there are some things that are simply literal as stories. And that doesn't make them any less real because they are real stories, but they're not necessarily concretely, literally real in the physical sense that you understand physical reality experiences to be. But anything you can imagine in some context is real because you cannot imagine non-existence. You just have to be able to discern the context of the thing that you're talking about to know the difference between something that exists as an actual concrete physical reality and something that exists as an idea that's still real as an idea, but is not necessarily concretely literal. Although I have to add the caveat that in spirit, anything you imagine can be created, literally exactly experienced as if it is physically, concretely real. So you can, in spirit, conjure up Mr. Spock, literally. And a being can take that form for you and represent it for you, and you can interact with it as if you are interacting with a literal being that is known as Mr. Spock. But that's taking place in an extremely malleable reality, such as spirit, where anything you can imagine can be manifest out of spirit material, so to speak. But it is not literally physically concrete in the way that you're experiencing physical reality now. But it will be as real as you imagine it to be, and will be the product of another kind of level of consciousness interacting with you. And in that context, just as real as anything, because the interaction and the experience will be real.
It's fascinating.
Yes.
And this person is saying they would like clarification on these two seemingly opposing ideas. One is that everything is a reflection of ourselves. And two, I hear you say sometimes to not take people's reflections personally because it has nothing to do with you. And it's just a part of their own journey. Can you clarify that?
Yes. Remember that you are experiencing your version of other beings. It doesn't mean they're not real. It's just that you're creating your simulational representational image of them and interacting with that. So what you are interacting with is your creation, but that doesn't mean you've created the actual being, the actual consciousness. The consciousness is real, and you're interacting with a real consciousness, but you're interacting through the filter that you're capable of manifesting that is the best representation of them that you manifest out of your own consciousness, out of your own energy, as an interface, so to speak. The idea of the second part of the question, read that again.
The idea that if someone the second person says something like your socks are orange and you know your socks are not orange.
Yes.
So you don't take it personally because you know it has nothing to do with you and it's part of their journey.
All right. Well, this is about discernment, because the idea is that you can always listen to what someone has to say and decide for yourself whether or not their advice is something that you do need to apply. And that's why they have been attracted into your reality, because there is a lesson there for you. There is information there that would benefit you if you applied it in your life. But you also get to discern whether or not that's true. And therefore you can, if you are honest within your own self-investigation, know the difference between whether or not somebody that's been attracted into your life and says certain things to you is actually having information that would benefit you, or whether you simply have attracted them to be of benefit to them in some way, shape, or form, by understanding that what they're saying to you is not your issue, but theirs, that you could perhaps help them with by giving them another alternative way to look at what it is they are going through. So they're still in your life because you attracted them, but you may have attracted them to be of assistance to them in changing the way they're looking at things, rather than them having information that would benefit you. But you have to give yourself the opportunity to decide which it is. You have to have honest self-recognition and self-awareness and self-discernment as to whether the information is for you or for them, or maybe both.
Okay, and this question is about assisting those in despair. How would you help someone who says that he or she wants to die? This person says they work every day with people who have lost their illusion in life.
All right. We're going to keep this very simple. Tell them to lie down on the floor or on the bed, close their eyes, and say they are ready to leave, and have them count to 10. If they can still open their eyes when they get to 10, they're not ready to leave. They are here by choice. And if they truly were done with their lives, they would have left. They would have died in that moment. That's all it takes. You don't have to have any other kind of assistance if you're really at your timing to leave. So if they can still count to 10 and open their eyes, that's their first clue that they're not ready to leave. They have not finished what they came to do. So that's an easy way to tell whether you're ready to go, whether you're really ready to die, whether you're really ready to wake back up in spirit, or whether you feel you still have something to do in physical reality that can then give them the sense of looking for what that is, finding their passions, finding their interests, not being so hard on themselves, not judging themselves so harshly, so negatively. Stop treating themselves so badly and start waking up to the fact that they are aspects of all that is, that they are beautiful, that they are creative, that they are loving and loved, they are supported unconditionally, and what they say goes. So if they want to buy into all sorts of negativity, the unconditional nature of existence will support them in that negativity because it is unconditional. And you can teach them that since it is unconditional, so unconditional that it is even willing to support them in their negativity, there is no reason it wouldn't support them in their positivity as well. And they can decide to choose more positive ways of looking at things, more positive definitions, and those will be supported just as strongly by existence as the negative ideas they held to be true or supported as well. It's up to them. But first and foremost, you can show them that they're not ready to leave, because if they really were at the end of their lives, it would be as simple as lying down, saying you're ready to go, counting to 10, and you'd be gone.
Fascinating. Can you comment on, I know people sometimes are concerned about how they're going to die. And then there seem to be some people who are lucky enough to just pass away in their sleep,
Why is that lucky?
Yeah. Okay. So can you explain
Remember,
that more?
it's all about choice, and it's all about a learning experience, and it's all about what you believe to be true. So regardless of how the death occurs, it's going to be the result of something you believe to be true. It doesn't mean that you necessarily would have preferred it that way, but remember that once you have died and the soul is looking back on the experience, it will have the realization of why it occurred that way because of the belief systems of the physical part of its being. And therefore, it will learn a lesson from that, that it didn't necessarily have to choose that, or that it did choose it for very specific reasons that may have more to do with others around it than itself. So it's going to be on a case-by-case basis.
So does that also mean that people who are like reaching the age where death could potentially happen, and they decide they want to program themselves that whenever their timing is, that it would be in a certain way that wouldn't be painful or something like
Possibly,
that?
possibly. Again, it depends on how deep they dig into their belief system, how they're willing to learn the lessons they chose to learn, the challenges they chose to face in this life in a different way. They have the option of doing it that way, but that implies that they've learned something about their ability to create their reality. And that may be the whole point.
Okay. And so people who have a lot of fear of death, there seems to be two parts to it. One of them is the idea that actually, this is coming from the near-death experiences. People have this wide variety of experiences, but it's all really based on their belief systems, right?
At first, yes. But again, initially, when the belief system manifests, when they are non-physical, they still get the opportunity to decide whether or not they prefer to continue to experience that or change it. And again, in non-physical reality, if they decide to change it, the change will happen instantly with no time lag. So they will learn immediately that it was the product of their belief system as to what they experienced upon the moment of their death, their time. Right now, it is premature.
Okay. You've explained that open contact is not just about contact with you humans, but also contact with all life on Earth. Are there any species on Earth besides humans which you are particularly interested in contacting, which humans are not aware of?
It's not that there are species you are unaware of that we will be in contact with. It's just that because of their nature, there has already been telepathic contact with beings such as dolphins, whales, other cetaceans, with other beings on your planets that you would recognize as animals, and even with the idea of some of your trees and the elementals of your world as well. So you may not know about all the elementals, and we will be having greater contact with them as well. But we have already initiated many telepathic contacts with the elementals of your world already.
This person has a question about, I'm going to try and sum it up. She has a 22-month-old son, and she watches your transmissions on a big screen TV, and her son usually plays in the background. But she's been noticing that every time Daryl starts to get into his channeling state, her son either looks away, looks down, or goes and hides. And then as soon as Bashar comes out, the son goes and plays again as usual. She wants to know what is happening here. Why is he doing this?
He is reacting to the transition from one state to another, from a state that he is getting used to as the so-called day-to-day normal vibrational state of your reality, and therefore is open to the idea of the vibrational state of our reality, but the transition is challenging for him between the two, because it reminds him of the connections to spirit, and in some way takes him away from what he's needing to learn by anchoring into your physical reality. The transitional state makes him feel like he is disconnecting from physical reality, and therefore he avoids it, because his job, his task, his challenge as chosen is to make sure he stays connected to the idea of the physical reality he has chosen to experience. So it's just the transition that challenges him.
And is this something that very young children, so they're more sensitive to these energies? And
yes, of course. Yes, of course. Because again, they are still highly connected to spirit consciously.
Mm-hmm. What is the percentage at for open contact in the current window or for the mid 2026, 2027 range?
The event that we have discussed that may occur in high probability, over 90% at the end of 26, the beginning of 27, is not literally open contact. Please don't misunderstand. It is an event that will lead to open contact. It is not open contact itself, but it is something that can cause a great shift in your consciousness, in your awareness of the possibility of open contact, but it is not open contact itself.
Why do we often avoid pain when seeking clarity and change? Considering daily aspirin use, which can mask pain but not address the underlying issues, reveals a paradox. Why do we choose the human experience, seemingly filled with pain, compared to integrating alien or universal aspects?
Remember that pain is the result of resistance to the natural self. While it's all well and good sometimes to alleviate pain with the methods that you have in your medicines and healing arts, it is very important to understand the underlying causes of it, because that's part of the challenge you have come to face, is how can you transform the idea of resistance to your true self in a way that will allow you to go beyond the idea of experiencing pain, but doing it by understanding the issues that challenge you so that your soul can grow and discover something new. So it's about facing those challenges and finding out where the pain comes from, why you are resisting your true self, what belief systems you are holding on to that are out of alignment with who you are, rather than just numbing the pain so you don't have to think about those things. That's just avoidance.
Mhm. And can you talk about trauma and trauma responses? This person says that my nervous system automatically goes into fight, flight, freeze, fawn mode when I get triggered. I have carried pain and emotional issues in my body since childhood.
You have not carried them since childhood. You are recreating them every moment because you have a belief system that says you have a reason to do so, that you believe benefits you. So again, this goes to the motivational mechanism. You have to discover why you would believe that you need to constantly recreate these things and why you are afraid, more afraid of the alternative rather than letting them go. This is a very deep and complex subject. In this format, in this forum, we do not have time to deeply address all of these issues since we are not actually interacting with this person directly. But basically, that's it. You're not carrying anything from childhood. You are recreating things every single moment in the present because you believe it's necessary for you to do so to avoid what your belief system says would be even a more painful alternative. So you have to discover why you believe letting go of those things would be worse than simply moving forward in the direction of your truth.
How can I stay connected with my son if I shift to a parallel Earth? I'm focused on raising my vibration, but leaving him behind worries me. He's been manipulated by his father for nearly 2 years, and he's not in a high vibration. If he doesn't shift, how can I communicate with him? As a mother, how can I support him in this human experience if we can't interact due to different vibrations?
Again, remember that everyone has their path. You don't know what's going to happen in the future. Just maintain an unconditional love for this being. Be there for him if and when he decides to reach out or change. Allow him his path. That's all you can do right now. Again, this is a very deep and complex subject that may require more direct communication with this person. But the idea is you need to support with unconditional love whatever path the soul has chosen and whatever challenges that soul has chosen to experience in their lives, and be an open and receiving presence in his life that is there for him if and when he should decide to change and reach out to you, so that he knows he can do that. Just let him know he can do that, but don't insist that he must.
Thank you. I recently heard your transmission about our 7 needs: air, water, sleep, food, shelter, connection, and self-expression. I spend so much time and energy making sure me and my family have the first 5 needs met. It feels like I have nothing left to dedicate to connection and self-expression, which I long for. How can I be more efficient with the first 5 in order to have space to focus on the last 2? Is it just a frame of mind shift? Can you please give me some guidance?
Yes, it is a big frame of mind shift. In other words, you need to open up your creative imagination and figure out how to do the first 5 in a way that is more in alignment with your passion, rather than going about doing them in the way that your society has told them is the only way that they can be done. So you need to open up your creativity and find the way that works for you to do them, so that the way you do them becomes more effortless, more efficient, more streamlined, more synchronistic. That will allow you the opportunity to allow you to attract all 7 in the way that is the path of least resistance for you. Because again, if you're following the formula, all these things, all these needs will fit into the way in which you do things in life that is more representative of the way that works for you, rather than attempting to do them in the way your society has taught you are the only way to do them.
Thank you. We have a lot of love questions. Can a romantic love relationship and personal freedom coexist with each other when a person is in an established romantic love relationship in which both acknowledge each other to be their lover? I mean, boyfriend, girlfriend.
Well, it depends on what you mean by quote unquote personal freedom. Because the idea is that if you really are reflecting to each other what you need to know, you are being honest with yourself about what kind of relationship works for you, then freedom in that relationship is a given, depending on what you are defining freedom to be. But the freedom to be yourself, your true self, begins with an honest expression of who you really are and what relationships are actually correct for you. Because if you're going into a relationship without having communicated what is truly representative of what you prefer, then you may be giving a false impression to the other person as to who you are and what kind of a relationship really works for you. So if you go in as your true, honest self, you will have all the freedom you need to be who you truly are, whatever that means, in terms of being in alignment with your truth, being in alignment with your passion, and being in alignment with the unconditional love you are expressing to the other person or people in the relationships, to allow them to discover more about who they are as they do the same for you. So look to your definition of what personal freedom means and know that when you are being your true self, freedom in a relationship is part and parcel. Because why would a relationship that is true, that is truly representative of who you are, curtail your freedoms, the freedoms that are important to you to be yourself in any way, shape, or form? That would make no sense. But you have to be honest about who you are and what kind of relationships are actually relevant for the true you.
A couple questions about twin flames. What is the purpose of the twin flame, and how can a person recognize that connection? And how can we foster the twin flame connection to come together in this dimension?
There can be many meanings to this idea. Now, it can be representative of a very strong agreement that two souls may have made to interact with each other in a particular way that truly reinforces one another's ability to become their true selves. Can be a very deep and abiding love experience. But the idea of the twin flame has been misunderstood by many people on your planet in the idea that they must search for this. All you have to do is allow every relationship in your life to be as important as any other relationship, because everyone that is in your life is there for a reason and is giving you the opportunity to learn what you need to learn, or to be of service to them in ways that will help them. And in that sense, you're all twin flames for each other, because they're all equally important, even though they may not necessarily be expressed in the same way. So we would let go and encourage you to let go of the classic definition of seeking out your twin flame and just move forward in the formula and attract what you need at any given moment that will serve you best.
If we transition to a parallel Earth that is a higher vibration than our current Earth, ever fall back to the initial version of Earth? If so, what reasons would that occur? For what reason?
Watch your definitions, because you don't fall back. You choose to lower your vibration. You choose to navigate to a version of Earth of a lower frequency. You don't fall back as if you have no control over this. So look to your definitions.
You said that we've already passed the point where there's no undoing climate change. Why is that? What happens to us from shifting to what keeps us from shifting to a parallel reality significantly different enough that it all seems to balance itself out? And maybe similarly, is this the same reason that we can't just navigate to a parallel reality where someone who seems to have died is back and present again with us physically?
Climate change is a natural cycle on your planet that has, to some degree, been exacerbated by human technology and sped up. What you're experiencing now, if it wasn't for the pollution on your planet in a variety of forms, probably would not have been experienced for another century or two. But it is a natural cycle. And you knew that coming in when you chose to incarnate. So it's part of the challenges you are facing that spur you to create things that can mitigate the idea of certain climate change discomforts and challenges for your society, to learn to adapt to these things in ways that will allow you to grow intellectually and on a soul and spiritual level. The idea is that you have agreed to face certain challenges that help you grow, and certain things are simply not relevant for those challenges. So you will not necessarily automatically resurrect people in a new reality that have died because of the effect that their death has upon your soul's growth, in your ability to stretch yourself and reach out to them in spirit, as opposed to simply continuing to have them around physically. The result of agreements you have made with all of these different beings are the results of the challenges that you face that will help your soul to grow in certain ways that you agreed to. And so you will not violate those changes. You will not violate those challenges.
I know that some children remember having chosen their parents. Do all of us choose our parents?
Yes. Every single one of you, for a variety of reasons. You may not think so, but you do. It doesn't mean that the reasons are the same for everyone. Sometimes you may choose parents you have absolutely nothing in common with, but because of the situations that you will face in that particular family, it may actually catapult you in the direction that you know you need to go, just because of those circumstances. So you choose them for a variety of reasons. It doesn't mean that you will necessarily be vibrationally compatible with who your parents are.
Mm-hmm. When following my highest excitement, my physical mind starts to come up and wants control. It's from a fear-based belief that it needs control for survival. Can you give a few suggestions how to relax the physical mind to surrender to the control of the higher mind?
Have a conversation with it. Allow yourself to assure the physical mind that it is absolutely valuable and absolutely necessary for you to have the experience you are having of physical reality, that it has a job to do and it's doing it brilliantly and doing it well. And the idea of connecting to the higher mind is not something that supersedes the physical mind. It is something that allows the physical mind to have a willing companion in life that it can work with, and that the control is shared in the sense of the physical mind understanding that the higher mind only has its best interests at heart, and therefore can relax the idea of its grip on needing certain kinds of control that are really not about control at all, but simply representative of a fear of being out of control. It needs to be told and needs to understand that the higher mind is presenting the physical mind through the energy of passion what it can experience as control automatically and easily, rather than having to work so hard at it. So you need to have this conversation with your physical mind that the higher mind is giving the physical mind an opportunity to experience what true control really is all about. And true control doesn't necessarily feel like an expenditure of effort. It feels like things are flowing very easily and fluidly, and the physical mind can relax into that flow and know that it is, in fact, experiencing the control that is built in to your being, to your soul.
Thank you. This person says, I'm new here. I just did the sacred circuit meditation today, and I started crying. My head started moving in the infinity shape and sometimes like a spiral snake. Is that evidence of contact with you? Is there anything more you would like to add to this?
No, it is evidence of contact with higher frequency energies that are now coursing through your nervous system as your nervous system attempts to expand to get used to it.
Thank you. As a Jewish woman, I'm unable to understand the reason for the constant hate and unbelievable anti-Semitism that is erupting around our world. Can you please explain to me why the Jewish people are singled out throughout history, and why have other nations and people continued to call for our extermination to this day? What am I not seeing or understanding? What is the source of such hate and false narratives? From my perspective, the Jewish people enhanced the world, developed, contributed, created, etc. Why is the world so fixated on a group of people that only has 15.5 million in number? Who are the Jewish people from your perspective?
All right, now this is a deep subject, so we will take our time with this. You're not the only group, of course, that has experienced persecution. That's number one. But the reasons for it in your particular culture are generally as follows, if you can follow along with this and understand what we are saying. Long ago, as we have discussed, there was a group of extraterrestrials that you refer to as the Anu, or the Anunnaki, that inserted their genetic material into the early hominid species you know as Homo erectus and Neanderthals and so on and so forth to create Homo sapiens. The bloodlines of those extraterrestrials are sometimes stronger in certain groups than others, where they may not have been quite as diluted. The Jewish people in general carry some of the stronger bloodlines all the way back to the idea of the Anunnaki. Now, those that are out of touch, those that are not consciously aware of all of this going on, still have a subconscious or an unconscious recognition of the vibration of that bloodline in the Jewish people. And they recognize it in a way that is based on a negative connotation, that they were manipulated and controlled by the idea of that ancient extraterrestrial race in creating Homo sapiens as a workforce to help them do certain things. And so, in a sense, it can be experienced by certain people in a fearful way as slavery. Therefore, unconsciously and subconsciously, by feeling the vibration of that bloodline in the Jewish people that has been preserved over time by certain events, such as wandering in the desert for 40 years and isolating them from the rest of society for the span of time that represents a transformation in human culture, that remained the bloodline to be relatively clean and clear, genetically speaking, then they pick up on that vibration that you are still very close to the vibration of the Anunnaki who suppressed them and controlled them. And they have an unconscious resentment to that and react to that and have a fear about the idea that they're going to be controlled again in the same way. So it's a very ancient thing that exists within the survival mechanisms of human beings in their limbic system that picks up on that vibration of the ancient extraterrestrial genes that exist within that culture that they are very, very afraid of and haven't come to terms with yet consciously in your society. We hope you understand this explanation. Of course, there is a lot more detail to it, but we do not have time in this transmission to go that deeply into it. So we will trust that this will suffice for now.
Thank you. Wow. The title.
This is approaching the end of the questions for this particular transmission. Therefore, we will at this time suggest that you now allow yourselves to end the questions and move forward with the idea of the remainder of this transmission, and balance and center yourselves in the understanding of the steps we are now delivering to all of you that can, if you so desire, to participate in them, help refine your vibrations specifically and tune your vibrations specifically to the vibration of the interstellar alliance and open contact. So, open yourselves up and breathe at this time.
Is voluntary. But are we kind of like guinea pigs in this experiment? Is this experiment just as new for us as it is for you? And have you done this, or have you done this with other civilizations preparing for open contact?
Yes, we have done it with many civilizations. Now, of course, the details will be different depending upon how their society is structured, of course. But we have done this before many, many times. It is one of the techniques that we put forward to again gauge when individuals and societies are ready for open contact. The idea, again, is that it is now a set of very specific steps. Yes, following the formula is still critical, but the idea is that we're giving you specific actions, since we have said action is the language of physical reality. So the specific steps we are giving you are specific languages in your reality that really allow you, as you say, to walk your talk and get more specific frequencies by taking specific actions that are based on the idea of the formula.
You've mentioned ways of informing our governments about the fact that we, the people, are aware of ET intelligent life forms. Should we continue to do that? What would you like? Would you like to address methods on how we should proceed with it? Will it be part of your future steps and or instructions?
Coming up in step 3.
Oh, wow. This question is about homelessness. How can we better address homelessness on our current Earth? Having once experienced homelessness myself, I strive to assist those in need. Can you suggest innovative solutions for this issue? How has the Interstellar Alliance tackled homelessness on other planets? Can we adopt similar strategies as we transition to a newer, cleaner version of Earth?
It is very rare for us to encounter within the Interstellar Alliance the idea of homelessness in a negative context. It is something relatively unique on your planet in a negative way. So the idea begins with the psychology of individuals, how they feel about themselves, whether they feel worthy or not. It is a very deep and complex subject and must be pursued on the psychological levels as well as the physical levels of providing shelters for people who don't have any. Because some people on your planet are enveloped within a psychology that actually prevents them from having shelter. There have been experiments done on your planet where what you call homeless people have been given the abilities to have homes, the ability to have what they need, been given sums of money to see how they spend it and whether they will use it to take care of themselves. Many of them have simply squandered these resources and refused in any way, shape, or form to avail themselves of what they can to provide shelters for themselves, to take care of themselves when given these tools, because of the deeper psychology that they may attach to the idea of receiving assistance from people. Some individuals who are homeless simply refuse to believe that if they take the help of people, they won't be under their control. They won't be obligated to them, and it is more important to them to remain free of those obligations as they see it. It doesn't mean they actually would be obligated, but if their psychology makes them see the idea of receiving help as an obligation that limits their freedom, their sense of freedom, they may actually choose to remain homeless in spite of the fact that they could be helped by others. So you have to explore the deep psychology, and you have to allow people to find their own self-worth. Now, again, this is in the negative context we are speaking. There are people who simply do enjoy living in the outdoors without a standard or traditional sense of a home, who can provide for themselves very easily as if they are on a perpetual camping trip. So you have to, again, assess whether or not the person is actually choosing this for a variety of reasons that may actually be positive or may have something to do with the life path they have chosen that can be beneficial for their soul's growth or others around them for their growth by interacting with a person who is free to engage with nature in a way that is non-traditional. outside and without a traditional shelter. So again, you have to assess what is going on, whether this is being created positively or negatively, whether it is part of their soul's path to learn something, how it affects them and how it affects others, but more deeply the psychology of what they think of their own self-worth. And then where you can be of assistance where it's appropriate, you can, again, pool your resources or rearrange your resources to build shelters for people, as many people do, to provide shelters for those that truly want it, truly are capable of taking care of it, truly honoring the help that they are receiving and improving their own self-esteem and self-worth by having a place that supports them. So there are many different avenues and many different directions you can take with regard to this particular situation. And I would suggest that you investigate them all, but be aware of the deep psychology behind what people are choosing to experience, consciously or subconsciously.
Thank you.
Yes.
Regarding the exercise of putting a picture of a gray in the window of your home, are any ETs practicing by putting a picture of a human in their window?
Some ETs are playing with that idea. It is not something that is as necessary for them as it is for you, because we can always observe you anyway. So, but some of them, especially some of the hybrid children, are sort of playing with that idea to get used to living among you.
It's fun to think about.
Yes.
This person says, I was wondering if your culture has any human subculture they favor, that they like the vibe or aesthetic in particular.
There are some cultures on your planet that have similar traits to some of the aspects of our civilization, and therefore we could say we can relate to it a little bit more easily. We are similar in vibration in certain limited ways and certain limited expressions, but we don't play favorites. So I won't answer it that way.
So you can't tell us just a few of some of the subcultures that you like?
Again, I'm not playing favorites. So the idea is, again, there are certain cultures on your planet that do have certain expressions that are similar, not identical, but similar to some of the traits of my civilization. For example, the idea of the philosophy of Zen or Tao may be very similar to some of the ways that we view reality and experience reality, similar to the idea of the formula. But again, we don't play favorites. I'm not going to say we like one more than another. That's not how we operate. But we recognize that there may be certain traits in certain cultures or certain belief systems within certain cultures that may have some similarity to what we are familiar with in our society. And that's as far as we will go.
Thank you. Are human beings the densest beings in the universe? Do you ever feel frustrated by our dumbness?
No, because again, we understand you are on a path to learn something. You are not the densest we have encountered. There are others that are as dense or denser. But the idea is, again, as we have said, you are strong souls, strong spirits to have chosen to be in a reality where you forget completely who you are, or as completely as possible to forget who you are. So the idea of the challenges that you have imposed upon yourself means that you are a strong master graduating class. And we certainly applaud your bravery and willingness and courage to experience these things for your own soul's growth, so that your growth can accelerate in ways that other civilizations may not be choosing.
What is something that most civilizations in the universe do not understand or comprehend about humans that seem very alien to them?
Well, one of the things I just mentioned. It is quite challenging for some civilizations, even members of my own society without training like a first contact specialist receives, to understand how it is possible for someone to forget as deeply as humans on Earth do who they really are, to forget their connection to spirit, their connection to source. It is almost unfathomable to many beings that such forgetting can occur. Who you are on a spiritual level. It is not something they have to deal with. It is something they have heard about, but again, find it challenging to understand or comprehend how such a thing is possible. It's not their path to understand that. It's the path of a first contact specialist or a social engineer to understand that. And therefore, they don't worry about it. They just don't really understand how to comprehend it.
And is it our path to remember, to figure out,
Yes,
remember?
yes, 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 yes. That's how you grow.
And is it by doing the formula that we can remember?
That's certainly the strongest way. That's why we give it to you. It's the simplest way that you don't have to overcomplicate or overthink. And within the formula, of course, there are many opportunities to be attracted to do things in the way that are representative of your individual passions that are unique to you. So within the formula, there are many, many, many unique ways of experiencing it, but the formula still works for all.
Wonderful. I'm interested in understanding how your people feel and perceive the excitement of meeting us when open contact happens on Earth.
We are very excited about it. Otherwise, we wouldn't be engaging with you because, again, we only follow our passions. So the recognition of joining, as we have with many other civilizations, whether it be in a structured interstellar alliance or even a loose association or friendship, is expansive to us to allow us to experience different ways that different beings have of relating to the idea of existence. It expands our understanding. It expands our knowledge. It expands our experience. You have experiences we do not have, allowing us to experience some of those things, to understand how different beings can create challenges that allow them to discover things in a very different way than the way that we do or other civilizations do, is very exciting to discover because it adds to the overall uniqueness of all the different facets of all that is and allows us to understand more of all the ways that all that is has of experiencing itself, which expands our understanding of the infiniteness of all that is. This is very exciting to us.
Will music play a significant part in upcoming open contact? I heard about an event where ET ships respond to our music festival lights. Music is often a way that humans raise their vibrations. Is there any chance that we can witness a mass sighting with some of your representatives during a music festival? It would be great to see your lights in the sky joining the rhythm of our music.
Yes, this is quite possible and maybe very probable, not necessarily right away, but in the years to come.
Oh. Can you tell us a little bit more about the music festivals that you might like?
No.
Okay. What is your current ship height above Sedona?
Approximately 1,500 miles.
Are you at Bell Rock?
Above Bell Rock, yes. 1,500 miles above Bell Rock.
I've recently seen ships near my house that I've previously not seen. These ships appear to be descending lower to the ground. Is there a reason for this? What is happening?
Again, as you all expand your consciousness, you also sharpen your senses to start peering into other dimensions. These things have been around you all the time. Like I say, there's a lot of traffic around your planet. But the idea is that they have usually been outside the vibrational frequency of your senses. But as you expand your consciousness, you can start to see things that you couldn't see before.
Which country is open contact most likely to occur first as you read the energies now?
Who says there will be a first country? Who says open contact won't happen simultaneously all around your planet? Why would there just be one country? That's not open contact.
Right. Can you tell us more about a unique civilization in our galaxy that we've never heard of before?
One moment. One moment. We are looking for what might be most relevant. We have not told you yet about a civilization within the Interstellar Alliance that travels. These beings are in constant motion. They are not bipedal, they are quadrupedal. 4 legs, as you would understand it. They are constantly moving. Very rarely do they rest. Very rarely do they stop. Their world is patterned in such a way as to allow them to travel long distances. They do this as a matter of gathering information. They do this as a matter of learning. They are constantly, almost constantly on the move, even moving while they rest. They have the same kind of capacity that your dolphins have to have half of their brains sleep while the other half remains awake so that they can constantly move, constantly learn. These beings have created a society that exists within nature in such a way that they have, shall we say, guided nature, trained nature to create certain structures that they use as shelters that they can pass through. But most of these shelters are very long and tunnel-like because they keep moving. And the shelters provide for them information, entertainments, stories, experiences as they move through these long natural tunnels, either in the earth or made of their version of trees or plants. The beings are ranging in size from about the size of what you would call an medium-sized dog to the size of a small horse and sizes in between. They do have a head. They do have 2 eyes. They have, similar to the idea, as an extension off the face, a muzzle with nose and mouth, but they are not really dog-like. They are not really horse-like. It is quite different. They sometimes will wear certain kinds of drapings, but not really clothing as you understand it. The temperatures on their planet don't necessarily require them to wrap themselves in something to protect against the weather or the elements. It is generally relatively mild. They do have rain. It is rare that they experience things like snow. Therefore, you would find the environment there relatively pleasant, relatively even temperatured. These beings call themselves something that would translate to you in your language as the phrase moving with the wind. But we cannot replicate their language for you. It is completely non-human and requires the kinds of vocal cords that they have that cannot be replicated in a human body. But the translation of their name for themselves is like moving along with the wind. Does that answer your question?
That's fantastic. Thank you.
Yes.
You've spoken about stars and civilizations within the Milky Way, the Pleiades, Orion, Sirius. Have you traveled to other galaxies outside the Milky Way?
Our civilization and many members of it have had experiences in other galaxies, the Magellanic Clouds, as you call them, and even the idea of the Andromeda Galaxy. It is relatively rare that we venture outside what you call the Milky Way galaxy, but again, do remember that we are in our natural state, another parallel reality altogether. There are some slightly different configurations of galaxies in our reality that you don't have in yours, and we have visited some of those as well. but it is rare that we venture beyond the edge of the galaxy that you would call the Milky Way galaxy in our reality.